please remember to turn off your audio and your video. The only people that we're going to have on audio and video will be the folks from Microsoft. So remember to mute yourself and turn off your video. All right, so we're going to give folks, like I said, give folks a little bit of time to log in. I just sent out a reminder, and then we'll get started here shortly. But this evening or this afternoon, depending on your time zone, I'm going to introduce you to the Microsoft Azure Data and Azure Compute team. You're going to learn a little bit more about their organization, a little bit about the team members, what it's like to work for Microsoft and Microsoft Azure Data and Azure Compute. So I'm looking forward to it. This is actually our first Latinx event in partnership with Microsoft for my particular organization, trabajamos.com. But we will get into that here shortly. And so just a little bit of housekeeping. So are we good to go with the recording?
Yep.
It's recorded. Thanks.
Okay, perfect. All right, so if everybody on the Microsoft team is ready, I think I'll go ahead and get started. I'm sure, Jesse, you'll keep an eye on the lobby for me, so that if anybody comes in, we'll let them in.
Gotcha.
Okay, excellent. So let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to our event. This is actually our first, like I said, our first Latinx event with Trabajamos and Microsoft. Also brought to you by HBCU Connect, which is a company that we founded. So what I want to do first and foremost is quickly go over the agenda. So this evening, first thing I'm going to do is introduce myself, my organization, kind of set the stage for this evening, and basically let you guys know what's going to happen right here with this agenda. And then second of all, I'm going to introduce our keynote speaker, who is going to be Rohan Kumar, who's a leader within Microsoft. So you guys are going to learn a little bit more about Rohan and his experiences, and of course, Microsoft at large. And then after Rohan actually speaks, I'm going to introduce you guys to different team members that are part of the Azure Data and Azure Compute team. So after I introduce each team member, we're going to actually have a panel discussion, which will be a conversation, sort of a fireside chat between Trabajamos and Microsoft, so that you guys can get a better idea of the company culture, a little bit more high-level information about Microsoft, and just a more intimate look at what it's like to work for Microsoft. And then after the panel discussion, of course, we want this to be an interactive event, so you'll have the chance to ask questions live in the chat window. So if you're logged in through Microsoft Teams, you can ask questions in the chat window. And once we get to that portion of the event, I will actually read off your questions from the chat, direct those questions to different team members from Microsoft to answer those questions, so that you guys can, basically ask the questions that you really want to know about working at Microsoft and the opportunities that are available. So this is actually a real hiring event with Microsoft. So a lot of times you guys might have attended info sessions where you learn about a company, but then that's it. Well, in this case, not only will you have the chance to learn about Microsoft and Azure Compute and Azure Data, but then you'll also have the chance to submit your resume and your information through their interview interest form and potentially land an interview after this event. So this is a real opportunity for you. So after the live Q&A, we'll go over the next steps for you guys, after the event, and then that'll be it for the evening. So that's our high-level agenda. But let me first introduce myself. So a lot of you guys probably already know me from all of the emails I sent out. Yo estaba pensando, tal vez, que vamos a hacer este evento en español, pero yo no quiero que ustedes me vean mal porque mi español está malo, pero we're going to do this event in English. But this is our first, like I said, this is our first Trabajamos event. We're very excited about it. My organization, HBCU Connect, has done lots of events to connect Microsoft with diverse talent. where it's primarily been talent from historically Black colleges and universities, African American talent, but we were also inviting Latinx talent to our events. But we thought, our partnership with Microsoft should expand, and we should have events specifically for Latinx professionals so that you guys can basically come to these events and not only learn about Microsoft, but also meet team members that have diverse backgrounds that might be similar to your own. So this is our first event, like I said, with Microsoft and Trabajamos. We've been partnering with Microsoft over the last 10 years, which has resulted in a lot of people basically not only learning about Microsoft, but ending up working at Microsoft. So this has been a great partnership for us. And it's going to be a great opportunity for you, like I said, to learn more about Microsoft as a whole, but also about Azure, Azure Data, Azure Compute, and meet some of the team members and learn about their background and how that sort of fits with some of your experiences so that you can ask questions. Now, if you have questions while different team members are speaking from Microsoft, feel free to ask those questions in the chat. And for the Microsoft team, if you're not speaking and you see questions in the chat that you can answer, feel free to answer those questions in the chat as well, just so we can have that interactivity. But like I said, there will be a live Q&A towards the end of the presentation, so you'll have that chance to ask your questions then. But without further ado, all of you guys are here to meet the team at Microsoft. So let me introduce our keynote, which is Rohan Kumar, Corporate Vice President, Azure Data at Microsoft. So Rohan, if you're ready to take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Will, and hello, everyone. As Will just said, I'm Rohan Kumar, the Corporate Vice President of what's called the Azure Data team here at Microsoft. First of all, I do want to mention thank you so much for the opportunity, for the warm welcome, and this time to actually talk with you. Personally, I'm been waiting for this event for multiple weeks now. I'm very excited to be joining my teammates from Azure, both the data and the compute team. And I thought I'll probably take a few minutes to talk to you about my own career journey at Microsoft. It happens to be the only company I've ever worked for since I graduated from college. Been here 22 years. So that's a long time. And just share a little bit about what inspires me about the company, especially I'd say just over the last 6-7 years, ever since Satya sort of took on as a CEO, how we've sort of really inspired ourselves with the values that we wanted to live by, frankly, every day as employees, at Microsoft. And then share a little bit about our commitment to inclusion and allyship. And and since many of you here today have backgrounds in software development and program management, I hope our discussion today you'll be able to have a slightly better understanding of the opportunities that are available. I can tell you there's just a lot of fun opportunities at Microsoft all up and in Azure, and I hope also you get an opportunity to gauge a little bit of our culture. If it's the right fit for you, I hope you find that it is. And if you are interested in pursuing a career at Microsoft, we'd love to really connect further and hear from you. Just to start off, a little bit of my own background. Of course, right now at Microsoft, I lead an organization of engineers and product managers. But I grew up in India. It's in a typical middle class family. And the things that have modeled me, my values very early on, were through what I learned from my parents, my sister. My mother's been a huge influence in my life. She herself has had a phenomenal career at a time when it wasn't very easy for somebody who was managing the household to have a career in merchant banking. But so very early on in life, I sort of got to see the extra effort that she had to put in. And, I'm super inspired by her. She sort of, eventually landed up being the equivalent of the Attorney General of the country. I still remember, growing up, how my sister used to imbibe the values of study hard, you need to become something in life. And that has sort of stayed with me. And then over here, came to the US, got my master's degree, joined Microsoft, back in 1998, July. And I've been so thankful. I think it's, my just to Microsoft and, for the opportunities that the company created and supported me and my family. My wife works at Microsoft as well, though she's in the human resources side. And again, a huge inspiration for me from her too. Without her support, frankly, and just the way she's able to multitask and manage a house and deal with such a challenging opportunity for her and support us as a family. It's been super inspiring, and I'm blessed to have two daughters. And so if you look at my life in many ways, my background and the way places where I grew up, I actually very firmly believe, I want this world to be a place where, when my daughters grow up, they get the equal opportunity. They are actually judged by the capability that they have. And that's something that's extremely important for me and something that I hope I can contribute to make that happen. Just to sort of maybe with that as the background, if I had to sort of share a little bit about my own Microsoft journey, I was excited and inspired to join Microsoft because the opportunity to have such a wide impact, back in late 90s, of course, Microsoft was the Windows company, like you could sort of come in, use your creativity to do some work, and that has impact across hundreds of millions of people around the world, which is super inspiring to me at that time. And I actually, every day feel very grateful to have had that. Of course, the company has evolved quite a bit. I've had several roles at the company. I started off as an engineer. For almost 7-8 years, I was an individual contributor writing lots and lots of code, both in the Windows core operating systems team, and then moved on to SQL Server. After I got into management, became a lead level manager, a manager of managers. I decided to sort of shift gears and get into product management or program management, as we call it here, and spend some time over there, just to understand a little bit more about the business, about our customers and how those things work. And the data group at Microsoft has expanded significantly in the last 10 years. We used to be a SQL Server company, and now, while that's an important part, it's just one of the products that we work on. We've invested pretty extensively in Azure and managed services. So I've held multiple roles. I used to run all of the SQL organization across engineering and PM as a general manager. And then now, I introduced myself, I run all of the data organizations. And, one of the things, if I had to sort of share, the thing that sort of has helped me in my career is I try to help every role that I took on has helped me shaped in a way. I mean, I always sort of, frankly chased experiences, something that, would help me learn something new. And that is one of the reasons why, Microsoft actually, frankly, worked out very well because, even in a division like Azure or in the data group, compute group, etc., there's so many opportunities. I mean, these are significantly, large businesses for us. And depending on if it's a specific kind of technology or a specific kind of role, you want to go deeper, on the hardware side, software, if you want to learn more about systems, if you want to learn more about, high level services that come through data analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, there's opportunity for all of those types of jobs. And, the other thing that I always reflect, and this is something that, I see Microsoft do a lot more today, is I learned a lot from my, one of the things I feel very lucky and privileged is I've had amazing managers and role models, right, who sort of encouraged me, pushed me to sort of, take on new challenges. If I had ideas, they supported that. And that's a key aspect that we expect all the leaders in the company, whether you're a manager or you're an individual contributor in a senior leadership position, just having that spirit of encouraging the junior team members, especially who sort of maybe are early on in their career, is something that we take pretty seriously. And just given my own personal experience, how that helped me, I try to role model that with, the managers in my organizations as well. If I had to sort of reflect on the philosophies, my philosophies, of course, shaped by my upbringing, my parents, my sister, my wife and kids. and which is very, very aligned. One of the reasons why I feel so lucky and privileged and so grateful, frankly, to work at Microsoft is because I see our value systems match, both for me as I think about my own family and as I think about my work. And that actually is important, because you really, when you think about it, what shapes you, what you think about is, there's aspects that have defined you as an individual. It's very important to make sure that the employer that you work for sort of shares those beliefs. And basic things I'd say, like, my experience has been shaped, like I said, through different experiences. I've worked very hard. I've always sort of looked at towards next steps and spoken to my managers about taking risks. And like I mentioned, they've sort of really supported me, and that sort of played out really well. And I hope to do the same in many ways to sort of give it forward. And I know many of you are just starting in your career, but in many ways, those first steps, like I said, whether to join a new company or take on a new role in maybe wherever you are already today, and take on new challenges, and always sort of, if I had to sort of maybe reflect on my own career and share that, I'd say, have that curiosity. There's you can get very busy with your day to day and never sort of maybe step back and reflect, but make sure you carve out time every week, at least if not once a month, to reflect back on, are you learning enough? Are you truly enjoying the role? And be prepared. Just, if there's one thing, like, it's a cliche, but change is the only constant. But it's an important thing to sort of reflect on, because if you're not learning, if you're not sort of on a like a daily basis or a weekly basis, monthly basis, you don't feel you're adding to your the learning quotient, if you will, then you need to sort of reflect and think about how you make that happen. And as you move through your career, I hope you'll always be open to learning new life lessons. And one of the big things I always tell is, leader is just a title. Leadership is not who you are; it's what you do. I mean, people, as you sort of grow in your careers, I hope all of you become amazing leaders. But know that followership is not because of the title you hold; is because of the actions you take. As I said, they say, right? I mean, it's like, people will never forget how you made them feel. And it's important to reflect as a leader. It's okay to have hard and challenging conversations, but it's super important. And I can't stress this enough, just given how challenging life is sort of becoming, to have that empathy, to have that, that consideration, when you work with your peers, when you talk to your employees. And you don't, frankly, you don't even have to have leader or a title to exercise leadership. You can have your voice. I mean, I see several examples of this at Microsoft where, leaders, and they have many, of my peers on the call, who I all consider all of them leaders, and who use their positions, who use their influence and their network, and to help us build better products, to help shape our culture. And to me, that's true leadership, no matter what your title is. And I know, all my peers, my team members here share the philosophy, that we have at Microsoft. And you'll find that across Azure, to empower each and every one. We really are, trying our best to build an inclusive culture where everyone's voice is heard. And frankly, we have fun, right? I mean, there's already a ton of stress that comes with, lots of things that are going on, but we truly want to do our best work. We want to serve our customers well, and hold on to our values, and really the aspire to culture that Satya has shared with us, is reflected on, is what we believe in. And if I had to say a couple of words on Microsoft's commitment to allyship, it's no secret. I mean, as a company, we've made clearly spoken about our commitment to diversity, inclusion, and allyship. A while back, Microsoft launched the Allyship program. This is called the Microsoft Allyship program. It's a learning and development program for the whole company. All of our 144,000 employees worldwide, are open. It's for them to learn and participate. And like I said, at the core of it, it's really about having all these trainings to become better allies, to understand each other's expectations, to understand each other's backgrounds, upbringings, and filters, because that's very key to know what allyship means. And I firmly believe, and I know as a company, that we want to create an environment where everybody can bring their authentic selves. You don't have to pretend to be somebody that you're not. and you can still succeed and do your best work. And at our annual leadership team at Microsoft, it was a really sobering experience for us, where we had some of my peer CVPs who actually openly spoke about how they downplay some of their aspects of themselves, because initially they thought that would help them fit in. And it took a lot of courage for them to sort of share how stressful that was for them and how that made them less productive. And I mean, one thing I walked away from that summit was I really cannot afford that on my teams. I mean, people shouldn't have to sort of they should sort of come, be who they are, share their perspective, and that's what's going to make us strong. And at Microsoft, we very firmly believe in diverse backgrounds and cultures. Diverse perspectives have made us stronger. They'll continue to make us stronger. They've made our products better. They'll continue to make our products better. And together, as a company, as we come together, we'll achieve more. And it's not, allyship is not about any specific person. It's really about, us as a team working with others, helping them in ways in which they want to be helped. It's an ability, like we've spoken about as a company, about growth mindset, about continuous learning. And the members at Microsoft, members of the Hispanic and the Latinx community, have always been an ally to me. And there's several examples where when I sort of reflect back on, and there is if I sort of go back and think about my own upbringing, I find a lot of commonalities between the elements of hard work, family values, which I believe are shared across our communities, which is been pretty important. And I hope my own, Microsoft journey and and what my teammates here, my peers here are going to share will encourage you to consider a career at Microsoft. Like I said, I'm very excited to be, joined by my, teammates here, my peers who are going to share their own Microsoft journey. And with that, thanks again so much for the opportunity to talk to you today. We'll talk a lot more, about Microsoft, answer your questions, but whether you join us or not, I really want to thank you for being here today, and all the best as you move forward in your careers. I hope you choose, or at least give us an opportunity to talk to us. But irrespective, I wish you all the very best, and I hope you all become leaders in your own right. So with that, thank you, and I'll hand it back to Will.
Rohan, can I ask you one question before we let you go?
Sure.
What is it that you like, for you personally, what is it that you like most about working for Microsoft?
If I basically had to boil it down, I think a lot of it is when I look at the change right now that we're going through in the tech industry, right? Just all up, and the opportunity, in my role, I'm fortunate enough, where I land up spending upwards of 30-40% of my time speaking to some of the largest healthcare companies, manufacturing companies, companies who are looking into sort of solving some of the hardest problems that we have in the world, and where 10 years ago it wouldn't have been a possibility to consider. And I think for me, if I'm able to play a small part in building Azure, as the world's computer, where using the power of tech, we are able to solve some of the hardest challenges that face humanity today, frankly. We are having these discussions, like, why does it take so long for us to run experiments to get the COVID vaccine? Why can't that be sort of done in a week? Like, having that opportunity to even think that boldly is something that really excites me. And fantastic teammates. I mean, I see several of them on the call here. That's a huge part for me. I'm a hugely a people person. So for me, Microsoft is very much like being a family. Like I said, only company I've worked for 22 years, and so it's very personal.
Excellent. So if you don't have anything else, I'll go ahead and move to our next speaker. Excellent. So our next speaker is Beatrice Mendez Andika. She's a program manager too at Microsoft. So Bea, if you're ready.
Yeah, sure. So hola, I'm Bea. I go by Bea. And yeah, it's been fantastic. I was super happy to hear Rohan. Every time I listen to Rohan, I get even more inspired, and I know I'm the right team. So thank you for sharing those words. And I'm from Venezuela. I grew up there, and then I got to go to school in Florida. Then I got to go to high school in Germany. I went to school in Wisconsin. and then got to do my master's, because one of the cool things that Microsoft offers is that if you join and you want to expand your education, they'll pay for you to study. So I got my master's paid by Microsoft, and I've been in the Azure data org for putting it all together for about 4 years. I also been in other organizations within Microsoft. But what I can tell you is that it's super fun. You're going to be joining with other folks as well. It's likely that you're not going to be the only person that joins at a given time. And that camaraderie that you build when you start, we call it NEO, or like new experience onboarding, something. I don't know what NEO stands for, so sorry about that. But I know that new employee onboarding. And so you get to meet a bunch of other folks. And that's one of the cool things about Microsoft is like, you're not going to be by yourself from the moment that you join. It's likely that you're going to have a cohort. I joined with about 30 other folks, all college hires. I graduated from my university and came to Microsoft. I've only been at Microsoft. And one of the things that I want to highlight is that if you have a particular passion, as long as it's not like politics or religion, but if you have a passion for either helping others or how like you care about the environment, or you do something in particular that really it's your call, for me it's to give back to underrepresented students. So Microsoft has allowed me, and with with Rohan's support and the management support, to actually follow my passion. That part of like be who you are and do what you love. It's really key here at Microsoft, and I have a nonprofit where we teach underrepresented students how to code. So we bring a lot of Hispanics and Latinx kids in Spanish and English, because some of the times they just come recently to the rural areas of Washington State. And we teach him how to code. And the cool thing about that is that we get to show these kids that might not have a role model in their families that work in tech or know anything about what computer science is. And we bring them to campus and they get to see Microsoft. They get to experience Microsoft. I can't imagine being, in 8th grade and coming to Microsoft. That would have been like, wow, this is the coolest thing. So the reason I mentioned that is because if you have a particular passion and you want to do that, Microsoft is the kind of company that you're going to grow as a professional, as an engineer, as a PM, but at the same time, you get to go and give back to whatever your passion is. So I think that's good, Will. I don't know how much time or what else, but I think it's good.
Actually, let me ask you a few questions just to give our candidates a little bit more information about you and what you do at Microsoft. Can you speak to kind of like a day in the life for you? Like, what is it like to be a program manager? And then what specific team are you on? Is it Azure Data, Azure Compute, and just a little bit of background?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm in Azure Data, which is like the bigger org. Within Azure Data, I work in a new team that's called Usage Billing. And so if you can think about it, is you have a service, call it SQL, call it Custo, or like any service and then you have emission of data. And that eventually gets to commerce. And commerce, if you think about it, is when you use a service and you get a receipt, that will be the commerce team. So the team that I'm part of is the one in the middle that's getting all the emission of data that's coming from the services that you use. That's going to be aggregated, verified, and then it's going to be sent to commerce. That way the customers 100% of the time get the right amount for what they used. So that's the team I'm working on. And a day in the life looks, first we have Scrum. If you're not familiar with the Scrum, it's a quick meeting where everybody goes and talks about what everybody has been doing. If you're good to go, what you're working on today, and if you're blocked, we try to put it in a parking lot and we discuss what's going on. And then after that, I'm trying to figure out the different scenarios for billing that customer has. Because if you think about it, when you go to a store, you buy chocolate, but you can buy a chocolate in a box. You can buy a chocolate by the piece, or you can buy a chocolate, maybe you like milk chocolate, right? It's different flavors of how each team or each service does the billing. So it's a lot of services that exist in Microsoft. So I'm trying to figure out my head around that. And then conversations a lot with the PM team. It's like, how can we move forward and do the planning? So the planning works in 6-month cycles in the Azure world. So it's like, what do we need to do for the next 6 months? But mostly meetings, first of all, just to see how the teams are doing. And then check-ins in with the team that you're currently working on. And then teams like the same platform that we're using right now. This is how we communicate. If we have just a question or something pretty quick, it's like, hey, by the way, I'm not sure about this query. Can you review it? This is the data that I'm getting. So a lot of collaboration, definitely, especially in this virtual world. But yeah, that's what I do.
So one of my favorite questions to ask for for each particular team member is, what is it that you like most about working for Microsoft, for you personally?
For me, it has to do with the people, and that community. We have something called HOLA, which is Hispanic Organization of Latinos in Action. And that's how I met Gina. That's also on the call. That's how I met Pablo. That's also on the call. And the idea with that is that like what we do is very complex. At least for me, I think it's very complex, and it's awesome because you have a lot of impact. But at the same time, as a Latino, I grew up in Venezuela. Is like you need that contact, right? And that camaraderie, or like, hey, like, where can I find arepas, or like, where can I find good tacos, or like those kind of conversations. And also, if I have a question ever about machine learning, I know I can talk to Pablo, right? And maybe we'll speak in Spanish and say, hey, I need this, like I'm doing that. And that OLA community, or that ERG, has allowed me, and I believe everyone, to connect with other folks that are like-minded, that you might connect on the language, on the food, on the tech, on the path that you want to go. And that, to me, it's very important. But obviously the tech as well. As long as we're making an impact and you have those people to support you, that's what I really like about this company.
Excellent. You hit the nail on the head. Okay, thank you. So unless you have anything else, I'm going to present our next speaker. So our next speaker is Fabio Balbuena, Principal Software Engineering Manager at Microsoft. So Fabio, if you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready. Can you guys hear me?
Welcome.
All right,
Yes.
so I'm Fabio. Hola. Actually, a little bit about myself. I was born in Brazil. My last name is Spanish, so my family is from Spain and many other places. So legend has it, my dad left Spain after the Civil War as a kid. He thought he was going to Mexico. I think he hopped on the wrong boat, ended up in Brazil. Be as he may, I am a mix of things. I'm very Latino. But I will disappoint everyone, because if you ask me about football, by the way, it's not soccer, it's football. I'm that kid that was always last to be the goalkeeper, so I'm terrible at it. So not much of I can help you there. I joined Microsoft actually quite recently. I'm a boomerang. I used to work at Microsoft many years past. After that, I went to Google and then Salesforce. And last year, I'm in Atlanta office. We started this conversation. Hey, we want to come back to Microsoft. And for a lot of the folks here that have heard Microsoft, and Microsoft did not used to be cool, right? So I was like, well, I had a very comfy life where I was, and like, oh, okay, maybe, but I'm pretty happy where I am. But then, I really got a good sense of things were different for people that are more into tech. The Microsoft today, since Satya took over, I guess it's really different. Microsoft is cool again. One thing I never thought I would see at Microsoft was open source. So for folks that are joining here, it's actually quite amazing, the changes. So I joined recently. It's about 8 months now here in Atlanta, as we are building a new office here, and there's a lot of interest for folks coming to Atlanta. There's a huge Latino community here in the Southeast. I'm sure many folks from Florida, and Georgia is just a step away. And so it's a really nice place. I'm not biased at all. I think Atlanta is the best office, of course. No bias there. And I am a manager. We just started a team on the Azure Big Data. So for folks that work on, there's a system called Cosmos, but it's also different things. But we run these massive data jobs that fuels a lot of the back ends of the system. So it's literally hundreds of thousands of machines. So it's a really large scale system, like you're gonna find in very few places. I find very interesting when I joined that you have the opportunity to work on one of a kind kind of set of problems, right? This is one very interesting thing for people that really want to join a tech company, is that we really have unique opportunities in terms of problems to solve and have an impact on a lot of our customers. So for those who do not know Atlanta, there's a lot of IT here, Coca-Cola, et cetera, et cetera. But these are the things that a lot of this business they really need well solved, and we have a unique opportunity to work here. I'm a manager, as I said, so we have a team that we're building here. Will, you wanted me to talk a little bit about what my day looks like, a little bit of that, or?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a little curious about your transition because it looks like in your background you've done some software engineering prior,
Yeah.
and so your transition from being a developer to a manager, and then on your particular team, what types of technologies your team uses.
Right. Yeah. So when I left Microsoft, I was a developer tech lead. But then my transition to manager happened outside Microsoft, and when I came back to Microsoft, I came already as a manager. The transition, I guess, it's an interesting thing. Maybe it's a conversation for another half an hour with over beers, right? But I guess if I compress enough of it is it is a different environment, I would say right now, like we're building a team here. So in a way, going back to something that Rohan and Beatrice mentioned is that um, I had a different energy when I came back to Microsoft in the sense that um, there are a lot of space for people that are not just one kind. You know what I mean? Like you see what I mentioned about the OLA community. You have Latino community. You'll find lots of, let's say, places to identify yourself with and be comfortable with. And I think that's really, really helpful because you feel that you get accommodated. It's an accommodating place, whatever you look like or want to look like. I really didn't feel like there was one single script that you have to follow to be successful. So it's one thing that I really liked. And when as a manager, I think that's facilitates a lot because we can. There is not a single path to be successful, or there is not a single path to be effective, and so it helps a little bit in that sense.
And then what types of technologies does your team work on? So if I imagine you have a team of engineers,
That's right, yeah.
and what types of technology stacks do they use, and problems do they solve?
Yeah, so we have a couple of systems that our team deals with, but by and large it's a big data background. So we have, which is pretty cool. We have a piece that is in-house development. There's some legacy there. That's every company, large company, have legacy. All of our competitors do, so we do have too. But there's also a lot of stuff we rely on open source, which for me is very interesting too. And I think a lot of people on the call will also find is not only that we consume and use open source, as we also participate and contribute back to open source. So that is a major shift I never thought I would see at Microsoft. So we use Java. It's one thing common. We use a lot of C#. There are some C++ code, I guess. These are more like historical base and but they're still here. It's still a workhorse. There's nothing wrong with them. And there's a little bit of Python. So we have some machine learning work done. Anyone today doing machine learning will appreciate that. And it's mostly distributed systems at large scale. So we got to deal with all the fun part of it, which is all the fun and mysterious parts of distributed systems. I find fascinating. I'm sure a lot of people find too. So no shortage of challenges and interesting problems to work on.
So my last question for you is my favorite question, and that is, what is it that you personally like most about working for Microsoft?
If I have to summarize in one item, maybe I will say two, but let's go one. I think that I go back to the point of there are quite a few interesting problems to solve. I mean, if you're really into tech and you like, kind of geeky, however you call geeky, I don't know, there's a lot of spaces and opportunities for you to have fun, feel challenged doing something, work on something interesting, and actually have impact on real people's life, for good and for bad, right? If you do something wrong, and I'm sure Rohan doesn't like to hear it, like maybe have some incident here and there. So it affects on the way, on positive or negative, but you do have a real opportunity to affect people's lives everywhere, like large companies, small companies, everywhere.
Obrigado. Gracias.
De nada.
Okay, so thank you. We appreciate that, Fabio. So unless you have anything else, I'm going to introduce our next speaker.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm done.
Thank you. Okay, so our next speaker is Pablo Castro. Distinguished Engineer and Director of Engineering at Microsoft. So Pablo, if you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready. Hi, everyone. First of all, thanks for joining this meeting. It's great to see this many people interested. So I guess a little bit about kind of my journey here. I grew up in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, and I went to school there. I actually worked there for a number of years. In a number of small consulting companies. This Argentina, I think, is a good other number of other parts of South America. There are no, or at least back then, there were no Microsofts or things like that. So there were a lot of small shops where there was a lot going on, but it was lots of small companies rather than these companies. So I worked there for a number of years. Doing things like risk analysis, kind of. It was expert systems. Back then they called it artificial intelligence. I don't think we'll call it that today. And then I had ran startups down in Argentina. Argentina has this thing where it has its up and downs in the economy, and sometimes it can be the wrong time to do things like that. So at some point. In early 2000s, I had the opportunity to join Microsoft, and I was always super curious about database systems. And actually, I was offered to come to the database systems group, and I just could not pass on that. So originally, the plan with my wife was we would just come to the US maybe for a year, and then get a sense of how was it to live in another country, and how was it to work at Microsoft, and then maybe after a year would, I don't know, come back or go somewhere else. So that was 18 years ago. So the 1 year plan didn't quite cut it. Like so many things kept us here, from the area to the company to the people, and through my time at Microsoft, I had opportunity to work. First, joining SQL was this very unexpected experience in terms of I would have not dreamt of the scale that this group operated at, even back then, and it kept growing now. But I came from this kind of small shop, handful of people. I had this argument with my manager back in Argentina of why did we want email? I could actually see everyone. It was like the one room. And I didn't seem kind of necessary. And then I joined here, and there is this kind of one product, actually one executable, like SQL Server.exe, 1,000 engineers in. Like the scale of the engineering systems, of the design effort, of the depth of the problems that we tackled was just so impressive that on day one I was like, this is a total privilege. I'm very, very lucky to be here. Since then, at Microsoft, I had a chance to work on a number of places. I worked in SQL for many years, and then things kept happening in the industry, and I had the chance to participate in them. At some point, REST and kind of APIs over HTTP became a thing, and I was part of the group that started kind of the REST APIs pattern at Microsoft. At another time, C# was evolving to introduce things like language integrated query and things like that. And I got to be kind of sitting in the middle between the programming language people and the database people. That was a ton of fun. Later on, the cloud happened to us, and that was really unique. Like, watching this thing getting built, like it was like the emergence of a new discipline. What it takes to build cloud scale systems is different from everything else. It's like distributed systems times 100 in terms of scale. It combines all the problems, from database systems to distributed systems to machine learning and more. So watching that was fascinating. I had a chance to build one of the services from scratch that's part of Azure today. Huge learning opportunity. These things are really humbling. You sit in these and you go like, where are we going to start? These things, there's so much to learn in front of us. And then after a few years, once that was established, Microsoft started, Microsoft has a history in Microsoft research on working on machine learning kind of problems, but we got a lot of acceleration towards bringing that into the products, putting that to work for our customers. So I had a chance to run the applied machine learning team here at Microsoft, where I learned a ton about another space I didn't have a background on. And last year, or maybe early this year, so Microsoft made this huge bet. Like, we want to bring analytics, democratize analytics for everyone. And we launched this huge motion, this huge product called Synapse Analytics. And Rohan reached out and said, hey, like, how about this? I just could not pass on the opportunity to come back to Azure data. This is kind of a space that is so close to me. So these days, I run engineering for a number of products, including the Synapse SQL Analytics offering, and also the Azure Cognitive Search offering. So a little bit of different types of workloads in the cloud space.
Do you still actually have to write code?
I write code every opportunity I have, but I have to say there are fewer and fewer over time. But I'm still hanging in there. I'm not going to let go.
So can you talk a little bit about your progression to becoming a distinguished engineer and sort of what that means? Because we have a lot of folks on the call that are in the program management discipline, but then we also have a lot of folks on the call that are actually software engineers. So to be a distinguished engineer or director of engineering at Microsoft, can you talk about like what that is and then how it relates to your progression from being a software developer?
Yeah, sure. First, let me say, these are the other folks that have this title at Microsoft are people I followed all of my career. I still find this distinguished engineer title I have a hard time kind of walking around this and putting it in slides. It's kind of humbling to be look at other people that carry this title. So I'm very grateful that Microsoft gave me the space to go through this. A couple of thoughts about this. So first, these careers are never built alone, and they're never built free of circumstance. So through this journey, there has been a mix of lots of people, like mentors, managers, like especially managers throughout my career that have created the space, gave me advice to go through this progression. And the other thing is there's a good element of luck. You have to be in the right place at the right time. It does take hard work, but hard work alone doesn't do it, like without people surrounding you that supports you and without a good share of, getting to the right problem at the right time. For me, a couple of things that were important inflection points were, I guess, a little bit of a pattern where there is, circumstance change, especially at the intersection of multiple upcoming technologies. And those create kind of vacuums in underserved markets, things that our customers want to do that there's no offering to address. That is where I tend to gravitate, is like, how can we innovate to do better in some of these spaces? And I have to say, most of these things don't take. So you make, you take risks and, you work with your manager, make sure they have your back, take risks, kind of multiple times in a row. They don't take, and then every so often one of them takes, those become transformational moments. A couple of examples that I'm work that I'm proud of. One was many years ago we were working on the question of REST and data. How do we put them together with a number of folks? That became an effort at Microsoft, and then became OData, the Open Data Protocol. That's now an ISO standard. So, having a hand on that, from there to ISO standard, it's not the kinds of things you set out to do. And then a few years later, we were starting Azure, and I was curious about the search space. Like, we had database as a service, compute as a service. We didn't have a solution for search as a service. And search is a tricky problem. It intersects a number of domains. So it's not something you want to just one-off, a quick thing. You want to have in your application as kind of industrial strength solution. And there was another case where there was an opportunity to start something, and Microsoft gave me the space to do it. I poked at it a little bit. It was just a few folks, and then this thing kind of took momentum and grew, and now it's this product, makes millions of dollars for Microsoft. I'm still very grateful to all the individuals that kind of made space so I could go poke at this and make it happen. And as a result, I learned a ton about how to, in this case, create a cloud scale system. And now I try to pay that back to to others that are new to the space or are learning this space. So it's been quite the journey.
So I've got two questions for you. First question would be, I know Microsoft looks for, when it comes to software engineers, Microsoft looks for computer scientists that can leverage their experience and their education and pick up languages, right? But I'm always curious as to what languages your team might work on, or what technologies. And then I've got to ask what it is you like most about working for Microsoft.
All right. So as for languages, we use a good mix. The core of SQL, the SQL code base that we use in SQL Server, SQL Azure, and also in Azure SQL, it's C++ code base. So we do a lot of C++. A lot of the upper layers of the system that we build are written in C#, and also as we componentize newer layers or microservices of the system. For example, Synapse SQL has this brand new distributed query processing layer called Polaris. Those things are written in C#. And then we have a good mix of other components for other layers. Like, for example, the Azure portal is primarily written in TypeScript. So there's a little bit of TypeScript in a number of places. We have Java in multiple places in the system. And then there's a long tail of things that, for questionable reasons, we picked up here or there, and then they stay there for a long time. And then you sit back down and say, well, this is going to be, some remembering. It'll take some remembering first before I can fix anything here. But I would say, lots of C++, lots of C#, some Java here or there, lots of glue in PowerShell. I feel PowerShell is the one language I will just never learn. So I just go through the day, searching how to do this or that. I'll never remember. I just accepted that I'll have to go search every time I gotta get anything done with it. As for what do I love about working at Microsoft, I'm gonna cheat and say two things. They're kind of very related. One is like the scale of the things you can build. I was just talking about Synapse. The way you talk to folks, the way we frame Synapse is we're gonna change how we think about analytics in the cloud. And so this is like a scale of things that the number of people you touch in terms of developers and analysts and things like that is it's hard to come by an opportunity like this. So I'm fascinated by the idea we'll build these things with these huge audiences and we'll tackle some of the hardest problems out there. Like whenever I talk to my team about things that look difficult, I'm like, of course it's difficult. Like, if not, everybody else would do it. Like, the difficult stuff is why we're here. And that related to this, I love the opportunity to work with people here. Like, there is from the whole spectrum, from folks that are new to the industry, high energy, super curious, all the way to the industry experts. Like, I'll never forget, the first few years of joining Microsoft and getting used to the fact that I would actually have meetings, I don't know, with like Anders Helsberg, who's inventor of C#, or in college, I studied transaction processing. There's this book, Principles of Transaction Processing. The author is Phil Bernstein, and he works at Microsoft. And I've crossed paths with him many times, and I'm like, we're just hanging out. And this opportunity is unique, and all of these are all folks that you can reach out. They're open to chat. You can ask questions. So those two things combined make it a fascinating place to be at.
Excellent. So thank you for sharing your experiences. And if you didn't have anything else, I'm going to introduce our next speaker. Okay, so our next speaker is Gina Malaver, Principal Program Manager Lead. So Gina, if you're ready.
Yes, thank you, Will. I did want to ask you, I don't know if we're running behind schedule, so I did want to ask you how much time I have, just to make sure that we're on track.
I would say 5 minutes would be good.
Awesome.
But no worries,
So
we'll flex our panel discussion because I've been asking some questions.
Perfect. Okay, we'll do that. So I wanted to start, first of all, I wanted to thank everybody who's on this call. Thank you for the opportunity to allow Microsoft to talk to you. Thank you for that. Thank you to Rohan, because I mean, many of you may see him and you see him as, oh, he's just the guy who joined the call. He's a big shot at Microsoft. I mean, and just like Bea said, he's such a humbling guy. He's so down to earth. He's just a great leader. So thank you, Rohan, for supporting the Latin community. Like I really appreciate that. And I know a lot of people do. So thank you. So a little bit on the personal side on my story. So I was born in Bogota, Colombia. This is actually the background that I have. The picture that I have is Bogota. I lived there since I was until I was 21. So I moved to the US when I was 21 years old. I lived in Florida for about 7 years, and I know that many of you have lived in Florida because I saw the phone numbers that you have the area code from Florida. So, you know, a lot of the Latin people have passed by Florida at some point, so I can definitely relate to that. I lived there for 7 years. I have an identical twin sister, so we're identical twins, and she lived in Atlanta for about 10 years. So she was very active with the Latin community in Atlanta. So I was wondering if maybe some of you even know her because she was just like always, you know, driving these events for supporting and empowering Latin people. So that's a little bit on the personal side. On the professional side, I have actually studied 4 different engineering fields. I'm a little bit of that kind of person who wants to learn a little bit about everything. So when I was in Colombia, I actually studied mechatronics, which is mechanical, electrical, and computer engineering, but I didn't finish. I moved to the US before I completed my degree. So I moved to the US and then I had to sort of like start all over again. And I think that many of you may relate to that because maybe some of you started your career back in Latin America, and you know, when you move here, you sort of like sometimes you have to start all over again, and that's kind of like what I had to do. I finished my degree in electrical engineering in Florida, and then I worked at Motorola. I did my master's in supply chain, and the reason why I chose supply chain is because I felt like electrical engineering was super cool, but the scale was so small. And I wanted to gain scale. And that's when I joined, that's when I did my master's for supply chain. And then I joined Amazon, and like I was, you know, driving like massive scale at Amazon. And then I joined Microsoft about 6 years ago. So I have had the opportunity to work in like many different tech companies. And as a matter of fact, I never saw myself as a person who would stay in one single company for the rest of my career. I was like, that's just too boring. But I do see myself staying at Microsoft for the rest of my career, just because like I'm really happy. And I'm not saying this just to like, you know, kind of like convince all of you, but I really mean that. I really mean that. So a little bit about what I currently do. So I work in the compute team. So I'm not in the team where Rohan is, but Rohan is actually my customer. So compute is, think of it as the foundational layer in terms of like the hardware infrastructure, as in we design the hardware that powers the cloud. We design the hardware that powers the world's computer, as Rohan called it. And we design the virtual machines that actually are foundational to anybody else who uses this platform, right? So Rohan is like one of our customers. He's like one of the biggest internal customers that we have. My role specifically is to actually diversify the processors that we have in the cloud. So think of the processor as the brain of the computer, right? So like that's the brain of your computer, and my role is to actually diversify that brain so that we serve many more customers and we take more opportunities to innovate as we expand that base of how many processors we use. So that's my role that I have right now. And, you know, going back to the question that Will, you were asking everybody, like, why do I love to work at Microsoft? I definitely can relate to what many of the people who already spoke said. I think that the first thing for me is the set of values. I definitely agree with Rohan in the sense that for me, it's really important that there's a match between the values that I have and the values that the company has. And I can tell you, I've worked at many companies and I never really felt that. And I never felt like that was something that I could have ever in a company. And being at Microsoft, I truly, truly feel that. And I think that when we talk about values, the most exciting thing for me is that we live through those values. It's not just something that we say, but it's something that we live on a day-by-day basis. It's something that we actually find people accountable for driving. So so you get dinged as a manager if you're not driving the true cultural values that we want to drive, right? So there's accountability for, like, you know, driving cultural change is something that all of us have to do. I do feel included, you know, and I've always felt like I'm sort of like the different one because I'm a female and because, you know, I come from a different country and because I'm not a computer science person. But I do feel like definitely my voice is heard. So that's something that I really love about working at Microsoft. And definitely the second thing is the impact. The impact that we have is just phenomenal. I mean, it's like the decisions that we make, the designs that we make, like impact hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of customers. So the impact that we have is just like enormous, right? So that's another thing that I really value. And then third is the people. I mean, like, people are really, just like Bea was saying, like, there's a sense of community. And you have like leaders, and I don't mean to pick on you, Rohan, but you do have leaders like Rohan who are just like humble. You know, we actually have a saying at Microsoft where we say, like, we are against the brilliant jerk, right? And and I kind of like thought that in the tech industry, that was the norm, to have a brilliant jerk. And at Microsoft, we're very clear, and we're like, you know, you can be all, you know, genius, you can be genius, but you don't get to be a jerk. So to me, that's just like phenomenal. So those are the things that really, you know, make Microsoft a really good place for me, and like that keep me excited like every day. I hope that was 5 minutes, Will.
No, this is great. So, so you beat me to the punch with my favorite question, but let me ask you, on behalf of all of the program managers that are tuned in to the call, and with you being a program manager at Microsoft, what types of skill sets does a program manager need to bring to Microsoft that are most useful for a program manager at Microsoft?
You know, it's that's a really good question. I think that when you find all of these job descriptions, and, you know, that happens like across every company in the tech industry, you find like these very specific requirements for like types of technologies that you need to know, like all of these things, right? But I think like the over skills are like bigger than just a specific set of technology that you're going to be working on. I think that as a PM, you have to have customer empathy. So you really have to be the voice of the customer. You have to understand the customer. And that's something that Satya really wants us to drive, which is like empathize with your customer. He says, like, we're not going to be successful if our customer is not successful. Our success is defined by the success of the customer. So definitely customer empathy. I would say communication. If you have like all this understanding of what your customer needs, and you have all this understanding of technologies, but you're not able to articulate that, and you're not able to press for that, like, none of it is gonna get done. Like, honestly, you have to be able to articulate really what it is that you need, especially when you're going back to your engineering teams. You have to be very specific and sort of like translate that language from like the customer is going to be maybe like they don't even know what answers to give you, but you have to like learn how to really get to what they need, and then you have to translate that into something very specific for to your development teams, right? So that, I would say that's the second one. And I would say the third one is like ability to deal with ambiguity. I think that we don't have a playbook of how to go about designing a new technology. We don't have a playbook, right? And honestly, I do think that that's where minorities are really, really strong, because I think that, at least, you know, for me, for my experience, I moved to a different country, I moved to a different state, and it's like you don't necessarily have a path for like, okay, this is kind of like what I'm gonna do. And those skills you gain in your personal life, and those skills I feel like I definitely use at work, where it's like, I don't know the solution, there's no path, there's no playbook. I have to somehow deal with the ambiguity and just find the best path, but define that path. So I would say those three are probably like top of mind for me.
Excellent. So unless you have anything else, I'll move to our next speaker. Thank you, Gina. So our next speaker is actually Christina Del Amo Casao. She's a principal program manager lead at Microsoft. Christina, if you're ready.
I am ready. I just noticed that maybe it's a little dark over here. Apologies about that. It's getting late. So yeah, my name is Christina. I am actually from Spain. I want to tell a little story of what happened when I was invited to participate in this event. I was very confused myself. I'm like, am I supposed to be able to go over there? Am I going to be considered an intruder, or is this okay, right? Because there's always, for people from Spain, it's a little bit like, we consider ourselves Hispanic and we very tight with this Hispanic community. Obviously, the language is a big reason why that happens, is the language, the culture. But sometimes you feel like, I don't know if I'm going to be welcome. And one of the things I loved is that the minute I wrote that, and I even put some proposal of other people that are from Central and South America, they were all like, yes, of course you can be participating. We would love to have you, and so on. And so this actually brings a little bit of the type of culture that we have, where there's a lot of inclusion and people just connect, right? So I was super happy that I was allowed to come over here. So a little bit about me. I actually studied telecommunication engineering in Spain. There's a few people actually from Spain in the bigger Azure that had the same engineering background as I had. It's a little bit of a weird one because I'm not coming from a computer science background. And so my evolution was a little bit first of going into some consulting business. Then I became more of a network architect and systems engineer. I was working for Vodafone and for Verizon for a few years across the board. I was in Europe, in some of the countries, in the UK, Germany, came to the US. And then at some point there was an opportunity to start working in Microsoft in what used to be the Windows Mobile team, which got me really, really excited. And I know I didn't go anywhere, but at the time I was like extremely excited because when I was working at the time in the operators, there were like all of these ideas about bringing presence and messaging and all sorts of integrated things into the phones, right? And I was like, nah, I don't think this is going to happen over here. It's going to happen in the devices, in the operating systems. And I got familiar with Windows Mobile, and I was like, that's where I want to go, right? And so that's how I finished in Microsoft, even with my background in telecommunications, go figure. And so I came to Microsoft as a program manager. And when I came, I had absolutely no idea what a program manager was. I was a networks architect. So I have no idea. I didn't even know how I got hired. I must have done something good in the interview, right? So I think one of the first things I want to bring over here is that now that I have more experience, one of the things that we look when we hire people from different backgrounds is what's the potential, right? How are we seeing these people grow and be able to take new challenges in the future, even if they come from a background where they may not have cloud experience, they may not have experience as a program manager. How do we see that they respond to some of the questions so that we see that in different environments, they're going to be able to thrive? Are they able to figure out what are the opportunities that we have in front of us? How are we going to have to do certain things from the customers? Can they pick up some of the technology and the experience at the same time and put them together? Are they going to be able to learn? Are they be able to think through some of the steps so that we know that they're going to be able to get a full plan in cases where things are ambiguous? How do they communicate? Are they able to abstract some of the problems in a way that they're more consumable for others to be able to be tackled? Those are some of the things that, yes, you can have a technical background, It doesn't have to be in computer science. You may not have a technical background initially, but we see the potential that you can take some of those challenges in the future, because we see that you were able to consume some of the information and learn quickly, right? And so that's what we look in many cases, both in program management and software engineering positions. We're looking for people that are eager to learn, that are eager to take new opportunities, and that they know how to adapt, and that they know how to basically change over time to get some of the things done together with other people, right? And so, of course, we do need smart people that are able to take that, but in some of the cases, we may actually have a good trade-off in between different strengths in the people that make them better for a given position. So I have been, as I said, 14 years a program manager in Microsoft. I was initially an IC. I was an IC for a very long time because I actually didn't want initially to become a manager. Now I'm a manager since actually a bunch of years ago, and I actually like it. And I'll tell you why I like it, right? Don't take me wrong, there is a ton of toil and overhead and processes that we have to do that sometimes is like, a lot, but it's for the right reasons. One of the things that the company does is try to train managers and make sure that we actually figure out how do we grow people in the team? How do we actually seek opportunities? How do we actually show a mix of empathy and also drive people to do better? How do we have all these balances in the team? How do we encourage people to take new challenges when they're ready, but also that we don't set them for failure when they're not ready for some of the things, but we coach them through the whole process. And so many of those things where I actually, as a manager, can look into what better opportunities I can give to the people on my team. How can I coach them? How in some of the cases I'm going to be preparing them to be able to present something in front of some of our leadership team? How am I going to give them a new project that is a stretch goal for them, but they're maybe ready to take? And how do I actually give them advice through that? It's actually really, really, really cool. And I'll tell you what, until I came to Microsoft, I didn't even see many of these things in my previous companies. I was so clueless. I was doing my thing in my little corner, doing my stuff. And now they talk to me about career opportunities or growth or anything like that. It was only when I came to Microsoft that I was like, oh, I have to start thinking about my career, really? And by that time, I had been already 10 years in the workforce, by the way. So this is how clueless I was, like jumping from company to company, country to country, not really having any career aspirations. When I came to Microsoft, that's when the first time I had people that were saying, well, these are some of the things that we have to do that I want to see in you to get to the next level. I was like, what? No. So one of the things I like as well is that within the company, we look into growing people with potential. We look for people with potential in the interviews, and we look about how to grow people. And we look about how to grow them at their own pace. Some people have a really fast career trajectory. Some of the people, I'm seeing them in the camera. Some of us are going to go a little bit slower. And that is okay, because everybody has different priorities in life. Everybody has different aspirations, and everybody has a different way of looking at things. Some things that are more of a calling for us, right? Some people like better the management, some people like better some of the technical things, and so on. If you don't mind, Will, I want to address some of the questions that were in the chat for program management. Some of the questions is, do you need to have a technical background to be a program manager? And I would say it really depends. The program management role in Microsoft is just not one single role. I would say it's like 20 roles. And that makes it really confusing, because everybody thinks the same bucket where all of us do the same thing as a program management. Is not the case. There are some program managers that are driving more some of the operation and processes. There's some program managers that are looking more into the user experience, and they're really looking to user experience and UI, UX specifically, how some of the flows have to go, right? I'm really bad at that, for example. Like I would be terrible at that. There's some other people like me that are more like techies, right? That we're looking into some of the lower parts of the stack. I will tell you a little bit in a minute about what I'm doing at the moment. And so for those roles, maybe we need someone with a bigger technical background. There's some other people that are doing more of the work where they're working with partners, so they're working with some of the customers on a day-to-day basis. They're gonna have to have a different skills maybe than what I have. And so what I recommend is looking to the specific roles and some of the requirements that tend to be some hints of whether they're looking for someone more technical or not more technical. We make actually exceptions, but some of the reasons why we have to put some of the requirements is because we really are looking for people that will be successful in the role. And that's why when we are doing the screening, when we're actually looking into resumes and when we do interview, we're thinking about, is this person going to be successful in Microsoft? Is this person going to be successful in this type of role? Is this person going to be successful in this particular role in this particular organization? Because Microsoft is huge, right? And we need a huge diverse types of talent. There's not one single one. And so that's why I don't feel discouraged if in some of the cases you don't see that someone is getting back to you. We sometimes receive over 100 resumes. We go through them, and then we just tend to screen some of the people that we feel that they will be more successful at the role from what we read. That doesn't mean you're not going to be a great fit in some of the roles, right? We always try to make sure that when we bring people in, we bring them to be successful in that part of the org. And we also, in fact, many times recommend, hey, this person is great, but I don't see that they might actually be a very good fit for this that I need. However, it might be a better fit over here. We do many of the things when we have some of the events, interview loops, and things like that. So Gina can tell you in some of the cases we have actually exchanged. I got this one, Gina, maybe someone that is a better fit for your team. So we do those kind of things in the background if the opportunity is there. So a little bit on my team so that you can see why I'm saying that due to my technical background, I go more in the lower level. At the moment, my team, the team that I have at the moment, drives the creation of the tooling and the experience that we use for doing maintenance or updates through all of Azure. So a lot of the services in Azure actually use our tooling to be able to safely deploy changes through Azure and then improve the maintenance experience for the customer. So you can see it's actually at the guts of Azure. And so that's a little bit about me. I'm going to get back to you, Will, in case that you have any other questions. So hopefully I covered everything that you wanted.
You did an excellent job of covering everything, actually. Thank you. So we've got about 12 minutes left. So what I want to do is, what I've been trying to do is ask questions that I would normally ask as a part of the panel discussion. And then I've been asking the candidates to drop your questions in the chat. And then for those Microsoft team members that are still on the call, please feel free to answer some of those questions in the chat as I introduce our next speaker. And then we'll probably have to go straight into next steps. Okay, so candidates, if you have questions, please drop them in the chat. And for the team members on the call from Microsoft, if you'd like to interact with the candidates in the chat, that would be perfect. And then I'll introduce our next speaker. So our next speaker is actually Daniel Jesus Valencia Sanchez. He's a principal software engineer at Microsoft. Daniel, if you're ready.
Yes, hello. Hi. Yeah, I usually like shortening it to Daniel Valencia. The usual, one or more first names, usually two, sometimes more last names. So if I'm asked to enter my full name, I'll enter my full name. No problem with that. So yeah, I usually go by Daniel Valencia. My story is probably not very interesting. I'm a 90s kid, secundaria, preparatoria, universidad, everything in the 90s. And at that time, Microsoft was a big thing. It was the thing that I, as a geek, looked forward to, kind of like a dream kind of thing. Maybe eventually, if I'm lucky enough, I might have some sort of work like that. But it was kind of too far from my reach as I saw it. I'm from Mexico, from the Northwest, from the state of Sonora, and after I finished my undergrad, I went to Ensenada to get a master's there, and then while I was there, I met somebody who is a professor in UC Irvine, and talking with him, I decided to apply to UC Irvine. So I got into UC Irvine, got a doctorate there, and then after that, I got a job with Google, and I thought, oh, that's really cool, but it's not Microsoft, you know, even though for a lot of people it was much better. To me, it didn't have that symbolic value, and I was there for like 5 years, and something I heard about, I don't remember the exact words, but I think it was like genius jerks or something like that. Somebody was talking about. That resonated a lot with me because when I was in that office in Irvine, I felt a lot of competition that was not very healthy. I like competition. I'm a little bit competitive, but I like sportsmanship too. So a lot of people there were these alpha geeks, as they call them, trying to prove that they're better than you, they're more smarter than you, and sometimes even tripping you to prove the point. And then at some point, I just decided that was good enough, and I left, went to another job, and then I was there temporarily for about a year and a half, and then I came to Microsoft. And this is now 2013. I've been 7 years with Microsoft. And for all of the stories that I heard about Microsoft, my experience has been completely the opposite. What I told I was going to find in Microsoft, I found in Google. And what I thought I was going to find in Google, I found in Microsoft. So it's kind of like how the impressions that are around there in the environment in popular wisdom are not necessarily true. And obviously your mileage may vary. And maybe that was true in my office. Maybe in some other office, it was completely different. Maybe in a different org in Microsoft, things are different. But I think I've really found a home in Microsoft in Azure where I can feel comfortable and do the kind of work that I like, even though I don't anymore because I'm a manager now. And just like Pablo said, I write code at any opportunity I have, and those opportunities are less and less frequent to come by now. But I'm not trying to do any feature work anymore, but I do some cleanups and refactors and little improvements like that that might be helpful and fun to do. That's pretty much the short of it.
I was going to ask what are some of the technologies that your team works on, and what are some of the problems that your team has to solve?
So the code base itself is written in C++. So we do a whole lot of C++ in there, and there's also a lot of C with classes, not quite C++. And there's a lot of test code written in Python and PowerShell. And we're going to start working with Rust soon too.
Excellent, excellent. So, and what is it that you like most about working for Microsoft?
Well, that which I said, it's a combination of the environment, doing the kind of work that I like, the projects that I'm involved with. I'm in the host agent team. I'm in charge of the component that creates and updates, does the entire CRUD, create, rate, update, delete of VMs. So every container in Azure is pretty much goes through this component. And it's very, very interesting to see things happen at scale. One more jab at Google. When I was there, everybody was talking about, you need Google scale this and Google scale that, and how is this going to behave in Google scale? Yeah, they're big. They have pretty good scale, but so does Microsoft. There's a whole lot of things that are happening in the millions in Microsoft.
Excellent. So we appreciate you all, every team member that presented. We really appreciate you sharing your experiences. I tried to intertwine some of the questions that I would typically say for the panel, to intertwine those with our conversations as you guys presented. So really appreciate that. So what I wanted to do next, just looking at the time, is give Jesse a chance to speak to the process from an interview perspective. So for those of you all that are looking to land an interview with Azure Data or Azure Compute, Jesse will speak a little bit to the process. I will, of course, send an email follow-up providing you with the link to submit your information if you'd like to land an interview. We already have everyone's resume, so I've already shared that with Jesse. If you want to send me an update, that would be absolutely fine. Jesse, if you're ready.
Yeah, definitely. So as Will said, he'll send out the interest form to everybody after the event. I've posted it a couple of times in the chat if you're able to find it. Be sure to fill that out. It'll have some helpful questions that we're looking for. And then someone from either my team or myself will reach out in regards to doing an HR screen. And basically in the HR screen, it's just to get some background info on you, and then we'll schedule you for a technical phone screen. So if you're a software engineer, you'll have your technical phone screen with a software engineer. And if you're a technical program manager, you'll have it with a technical program manager. And then if you pass your technical screen, you'll then be scheduled for a final round interview at a later date, which will be virtual, of course. So basically it's a 3-step process: HR screen, technical phone screen, and then final round interview. But you have to fill out the interest form because that's how we're going to get your information to be able to reach out to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Jesse. And so what I wanted to do last is just kind of save the final words for Rohan. Rohan, if you have any final words for the candidates, any words of encouragement about their path to potentially join Microsoft.
Again, I think first of all, thank you, Will. I think I must say you very masterfully orchestrated the whole 90 minutes and just kept the whole engagement very bright and positive. So thank you for that. What I will say again, thank you to my colleagues here. I think it was I was very intently listening to each and every one's story, and it was fantastic to always learn something new. So which is great. Thank you for sharing. For everyone who's attending, I've been sort of following the chat as well. It's great set of questions. Please do reach out and follow up and learn more. And what I will say is, you've already taken the first step towards something that can be super impactful. Just by attending this and showing that curiosity. If and as you heard in all the stories, right? I mean, there's no single path. Everyone takes their own this thing. If there's one thing I'd leave you with is, always reach out, always ask, be curious. Like always, I share this with my daughters as well, which is like, what's the worst that can happen? It may be a no, which is going to be a no if you don't try anyway. So I'll maybe just leave you with that again. And it's been a really great experience to sort of be a part of this. And again, I do want to thank Will and the team for the opportunity.
And thank you. So I have a quick story for the candidates. I can vouch for Microsoft as being a great company to work for. While I've never worked for Microsoft, I am a software engineer. And before I started my company, I almost went to go work for Microsoft. Microsoft made me an offer, and the only reason I didn't take it is because I wanted to take my chance and run my company. But 20 years later, now Microsoft is actually my largest client, and I love working with Microsoft. So we've done many events like this. They're real events. Microsoft is really hosting interviews. They're really making hires from these events. So you're in good company. As you can see, people from the Microsoft team took the time out to share their experiences. That they took the time out of their schedule, to make you feel welcome at Microsoft as well. So thank you to the Microsoft team, and thank you to all of the candidates that you guys have taken the time out of your schedule to learn more about Microsoft and Azure Data and Azure Compute. So like I said, I will follow up via email with instructions for next steps. And if you have any questions, you can email me back, or if you want to send me your latest resume, you can send that over, and then I'll share it with Jesse and team. So thanks, everyone. Muchas gracias por todo, por llegando a estar con nosotros. Y bueno, espero que todo va bien y buena suerte con Microsoft.
Gracias. Chao.
Okay, adiós.
Bye.
Ciao.
Chao, gracias a todos.